The 8th Summit of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, continues in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In Mexico, the Popocatepetl volcano continues to spew columns of steam with ash and volcanic gases. And the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in the occupied Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, accused Israel of trying to starve the population of the Gaza Strip. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. St. Vincent and the Grenadines welcomed the heads of states and government to participate in the 8th CELAC Summit. St. Vincent and the Grenadines seals a year at the helm of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States with the 8th Summit of the bloc and the premise of living as a legacy, a more inclusive mechanism. Among the leaders who arrived in Kingston are the President of Brazil, Luis Ignacio da Silva, the President of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, the President of Bolivia, Luis Arce, among others. It's expected that at this summit, the leaders of the mechanism will advocate for deepening political, economic, social, and cultural integration, in addition to consolidating the ties of solidarity and cooperation among the nations of the region. On the other hand, the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, will assume the pro tempore presidency of CELAC, replacing the Prime Minister, Rafa Gonsalves. During his intervention at the 8th Summit of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Rafa Gonsalves, recalled that at the 2nd CELAC Summit held in Havana in 2014, it was agreed that Latin America and the Caribbean be a peace zone. Gonsalves hailed the 10th anniversary of this agreement and exemplified how Guyana and Venezuela recently resolved their dispute through dialogue.
In Havana, our country is committed to treat with our differences, controversies, and disputes peacefully through dialogue, negotiation, and other forms of settlement in accord with the sovereignty of states and international law. A recent example of this, on December 14, 2023, in the Declaration of Argyll, here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Guyana and Venezuela agreed to recommit themselves to the Latin America and the Caribbean in a zone of peace and set up modalities for the maintenance of this peace. And I want to congratulate my friends, the presidents of Guyana and Venezuela, on this remarkable achievement. And the peace is holding, despite dissonances occasionally.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel, in his speech at the 8th Summit of CELAC, thanked Rafa Gonsalves, President of CELAC and Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, for his initiative to bring together presidents of the conclave to celebrate together the 10th anniversary of the proclamation of Latin American and Caribbean as a zone of peace, and in this regard expressed the following.
Our proclamation is very young, but it is undoubtedly a historic milestone in the young history of CELAC. Cuba is particularly honored that the signing of the document by the head of the state and the government of the 33 countries in the region took place at the summit in Havana. The region and the world need peace in order to concentrate all its capacity, intelligence, and resources on facing the real enemies of our species: hunger, poverty, climate change, illiteracy, diseases, depletion of natural resources, and the growing marginalization to which the great majority of the world's population is subjected today.
In this context, the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, after greeting all the presidents and peoples of the region, assumed the pro tempore presidency of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC, and reaffirmed her commitment to peace.
As President of the Republic of Honduras and President pro tempore of the System of Central American Nations, SICA, I have the honor to assume the pro tempore presidency of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELAC. And as a worthy representative of the Honduran resistance, I send a strong and high embrace to the brave and noble people of the great fatherland of Latin America and the Caribbean. In front of their worthy representative, I reaffirm my unabated commitment for peace.
And at the opening ceremony of the 8th CELAC Summit, music and culture were also present at the host country honor its guests with a cultural performance that praised the musical inclination of the region. Let's listen for a bit and we'll be right back with more from the South. Welcome back from the South. In Mexico, the Popocatepetl volcano continued to spew columns of steam with ash and volcanic gases. The National Center of Communication and Operations of Civil Protection reported on Thursday the lightfall of ash in several municipalities of the state of Morelos, Puebla, and the state of Mexico. The National Commission for the Prevention of Disasters registered more than 148 exhalations of steam, gases, and ashes, and said it had identified 1.34 minutes of high-frequency and low-amplitude tremor in the last 24 hours. Authorities again urged the population not to go near the volcano. In Haiti, at least 20 people were injured in a new day of violence perpetrated by various armed gangs that control different neighborhoods of Port-au-Prince. After Bahamian Prime Minister Philip Davis assured that Haiti's leader Ariel Henry had pledged to hold elections by August 31, 2025, heavily armed gangs reportedly wreaked havoc through Port-au-Prince. Shootings took place in and around the capital. A police station was raided by the gangs, and schools sent their students home. The head of the G9 criminal group, ex-cop Jimmy Cherisier, announced that this is the beginning of an alleged revolution and that the gunmen are now in control. In Brazil, the government proposed to the G20 the implementation of a global tax on super rich to promote sustainable development and reduce the high poverty rates. The proposal was presented by Brazil's Minister of Finance, Fernando Haddad, who stated that if all the nations of the world collaborated with each other, they could make a few individuals contribute positively to society. The minister previously instituted an investment fund tax on billionaires in Brazil, which allowed for a notable increase in tax collection, reaching $830 million in 1 year. The government of Luiz Inácio da Silva is currently leading the G20 until the end of 2024 and has proposed to focus the group on the issue of poverty and the struggle for a more equal society. The National Assembly of Venezuela delivered to the National Electoral Council the document containing the dialogue agreement and the proposal for the 2024 electoral calendar. The delivery of the document was headed by the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, and other members of the Legislative Board. The magistrates of the National Electoral Council were present. Rodriguez pointed out that the document transmits the will of the 53 participating political parties to respect the decisions issued by the National Electoral Council. At the same time, Rodriguez pointed out that during the dialogues, the idea of broadening the participation of all the political parties of the country was expressed. In Argentina, social activists gathered outside the National Congress in Buenos Aires to protest against the imposed neoliberal policies of Javier Milei administration when the lower chamber met to pass a food emergency plan amid reports of rising hunger. Thousands of citizens remain on the streets to reject the economic policies that aim at privatization and the end of social programs. These policies are being promoted by the government of Javier Milei, including the rise of public transportation fees and the blockade to help for community soup kitchens. Protesters reject these neoliberal adjustment measures that cause the rise of inflation, trying to make a call on a government that stands still at the face of the citizens' needs. The United States Congress approved on Thursday a short-term budget to finance the federal government and avoid its partial shutdown. In the House of Representatives, the bill was approved with 320 votes in favor and 99 against, while on the Senate side, the initiative obtained 77 votes in favor and 13 against. The measure, known as the Continuing Resolution, postpones the funding of certain government departments until next Friday, March 8th, while at the same time postpones the deadline for the rest of the agencies until March 22nd. In this context, the Senate rejected both the attempts to add additional aid to Israel and the inclusion of the Border Security Bill, H.R. 2, passed by the Republican House. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin American and Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. On Friday, the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in the occupied Palestinian territory, Francesca Albanese, accused Israel of trying to starve the population of the Gaza Strip. Her questioning comes against the backdrop of the massacre that took place Thursday in Gaza City, when Israeli soldiers fired on a crowd of citizens waiting for the arrival of vehicles loaded with food. According to official figures, at least 112 Palestinians were killed and 760 others were wounded. The UN official also criticized Western media coverage of the Israeli aggression against the coastal enclave, home to 2.3 million people. Western media simply cannot report honestly on Gaza, she said, on the same social media. In a new war crime, Israel attacked this Friday a schoolhouse and displaced families in Han Yunis, in the south of Gaza Strip. At least 3 civilians were killed and more than 10 wounded during the artillery bombardment by the occupation army on a school located in Hamad City neighborhood. This attack follows the massacre committed by the occupation forces on Thursday morning along Rashid Street in the west of Gaza City. Over 112 Palestinians were killed and hundreds injured in the attack, which targeted thousands of civilians waiting for the arrival of humanitarian aid trucks. In Israel, hundreds of activists demonstrated in Tel Aviv to demand a permanent ceasefire and an end to the genocide against the Palestinian population in the Gaza Strip. The demonstration took place outside Tel Aviv Cinematheque, where some 300 people showed up with placards displaying messages calling for an end to the genocide in Gaza. During the event, Jewish and Arab Israeli demonstrators, as well as authorities from charitable organizations and relatives of Gaza victims, gave several speeches that were preceded by a minute of silence in honor of all those killed by the Israeli occupation army. The call, entitled "Only Peace Will Bring Security," was signed by 19 leftist organizations. In Uruguay, citizens demonstrated in over 11 locations in the country in solidarity with Palestine. Demonstrators in Montevideo mobilized up to Independence Square in front of the Uruguayan government headquarters under the slogan, "It's not war, it's genocide." Demonstrators expressed their rejection of the government's abstention from the request for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and raised their voice for the rights of the Palestinian people. In Iran this Friday, the elections are held to designate the new deputies to the national parliament. A total of 60,000 polling stations were set up where the population can democratically elect the 290 deputies who will occupy the seats in parliament, as well as 88 members of experts assembly. The leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, was among the first to cast his electoral vote at a Tehran polling station. After casting his ballot, Ayatollah Khamenei expressed the hope that the elections would lead to good results and benefit the Iranian people. According to Iran's election committee, over 61 million Iranian citizens are expected to cast their votes. A leading opponent of Chad's ruling junta chief has died in an army assault on his party headquarters ahead of a May election. The assault took place the day after Chad announced it would hold a presidential election on May 6, ending 3 years of junta rule when David Itno took power after his father was killed fighting rebels. 49-year-old Yaya Dilo Dijeru, who led the opposition Socialist Party Without Borders, had been accused of leading an attack against the offices of the Internal Security Agency overnight on Tuesday to Wednesday. Later, internet access was cut in the capital and the army carried out an assault on the party's main office with automatic weapons. According to government spokesman Abdurrahman Kulamala, Dilo died on Wednesday where he had retreated at the headquarters of his party. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.